betrayal rarely begins with a confession. It starts in a footnote that no one reads, then grows into a number that is too perfect to be true. My name is Rhea Calder. I am 31. I work as a forensic analyst at Echelon Capital, a private equity firm that sells certainty to people who hate surprises. My job is to prove that our wins came from boring work rather than magic. I trust reconciliations over charisma. I grew up helping my mother balance a cash drawer under a flickering pharmacy light, so I built a career where sense matter. At 5:42 a.m., a reconciliation did not reconcile. Fund 3 reported a quarter with a sudden leap in net IRR after 3 flat periods. The memo said it was due to a sustainability-linked credit step-down and accelerated exits. The ledger said 2 portfolio companies had not closed. The variance sat in a pair of wires labeled recycling. The amounts were large. The timestamps were midnight. The approvals carried my user tag. I do not approve wires that late. I do not approve wires at all without a second sign-off. I pulled the audit trail. The approvals came from a device that last checked into the office network at 12:03 a.m. from a guest subnet. My credentials fired within 2 minutes of that check-in. The wires moved from a custodian account to an SPV I had never seen, then to the fund. On paper, it looked like returned capital. In reality, it smelled like a loop that makes returns look better than they are. By 7, the office began to fill with early risers and people rehearsing optimism. Laurel Voss, a senior partner with a smile that fits any room, stopped by my door and tapped the glass. "Good news quarter," she said. "Numbers are clean when they are clean," I replied. She tilted her head, the way people do when they want you to believe they are listening. "Walk the board through it at 10. No surprises." I kept my face neutral. Of course. After she left, I called the only person who will tell me when I am wrong without enjoying it. His name is Benji Rao. He runs middle office ops and owns more quiet process than anyone here. "Recycling should only follow realized proceeds," he said. "You knew that before you called." "My tag approved 2 wires at midnight," I said. "Both from a custodian account that should be cold. Both landed in a new SPV." He paused. "Whose SPV?" "Name is Greenlink Holdco 2. We both knew the phrase to search. Greenlink was the label used for our ESG side vehicles that claim rate step-downs when targets are met. Side letters control them. Side letters live in a folder called mirrors that only partners and compliance can see. I did not have that access. I did, however, have a friend in compliance who dislikes mysteries more than rules. Priya Patel texted me an internal note with no greeting. Greenlink 2 added last quarter. Side letter signed by Voss and Park. SLL targets certified by external reviewer named Harkin Advisors. Reviewer domain registered 6 months ago. Owner unknown. Gideon Park is our CFO. He likes round numbers, fast closings, and meetings that end 5 minutes early. He does not like being told his favorite ratio rests on sand. I walked down to the cage where we keep offline tokens and checked the seal on mine. Intact. The log showed no removal, which left 2 options. A cloned image of my machine or a device side capture weeks in the making. Either required help. At 9, Laurel pinged me to join the 10 o'clock prep. Gideon would be there. So would Dimitri Shaw from compliance, a man who treats rules like a faith that saved him. I printed the wire stubs, the SPV register, and the custodian statements, then saved a clean copy to an external drive that lives nowhere near our network. Before I stood up, my phone buzzed with a blocked message. "Good morning, Rhea. You will present clean numbers. You will not mention Greenlink. Think of this as a test of loyalty." Attached was a photo of my living room taken from inside. The angle was wrong for the window. Someone had been in my apartment. I do not scare well. I do, however, change tactics when the ground moves. I texted Benji one line. Pull the badge logs from last night. Guest subnet 2. He replied in seconds. Guest badge at 11:58 p.m. Name on the print is Park. Device registered as Harkin. Harkin, the external reviewer that did not exist a year ago. At 9:32 Gideon walked past my door with Laurel at his side. He did not look in. He never does when he is busy making a version of events he prefers. I followed them to the war room. The glass walls reflected a team that believed its own pitch. Laurel opened. Headlines only. Rhea, explain the lift. I put the graph on the screen and let silence work first. The leap looked like a stair cut into a cliff. IRR improved due to claimed step-downs and reported recycling, I said. 2 exits are still pending. The wires that fund the recycle carry midnight timestamps and route through Greenlink 2. Gideon smiled like a teacher offering a correction. Greenlink is an approved structure overseen by Harkin advisors. Recycling is within LPA. Next point. Approved structures still pass custodian checks, I said. These did not. My credentials were used while I was offline. Dmitri leaned forward. Are you asserting fraud? I am asserting that our process did not happen. Gideon kept the smile but narrowed the eyes. We can unpack mechanics later. The board needs confidence now. Confidence comes with provenance, I said. Laurel cut across the table without raising her voice. Rhea, we all respect rigor. We also know pacing. Put your concerns in a memo for compliance review. Today's board deck stays as is. Dmitri did not nod. He did not argue either. He wrote something in his notebook that I could not see. I closed my laptop. Understood. Laurel relaxed. Gideon did too soon. I went back to my office and wrote a brief that did not read like an accusation. It read like numbers. Timestamps, paths, missing approvals, the name of an external reviewer with no history, the SPV register with ownership redacted. I copied it to a drive, sealed it in an envelope, and walked it to Dmitri. If I am wrong, we fix fast, I said. If I am right, this is bigger than a ratio. He took the envelope. You are not wrong often. On my way back, a man I did not recognize stepped out of the elevator with a visitor badge and a coat too expensive for November rain. He glanced at me, then at the directory, then at Laurel's office. He moved like the answer to a question no one had asked aloud yet. At 1:06 p.m. my apartment camera sent a motion alert. I opened the feed. Nothing moved. The red indicator had been covered and then uncovered. A courtesy. A threat. Another blocked message arrived. You wanted provenance. Check your freezer. I left the building. I took a car home. The freezer door opened with a soft pull. Inside, a small black recorder sat next to a bag of peas. I pressed play. Gideon's voice filled my kitchen, cold and clear. We preload the recycle and certify it with Harkin. Rhea will not break ranks. She believes in process. Laurel will handle the board. You handle the wires. Another voice answered. Lower, familiar from the elevator. Already handled. The file ended there. I stood very still. Then I put the recorder in a metal tin and slid it into my bag. At 2:10 p.m. the board would meet. Laurel would promise strength. Gideon would promise process. I would bring proof. I am loyal until numbers contradict loyalty. Today the numbers did. The boardroom at Echelon was built to make people feel replaceable. Frosted glass, long stone table, chairs that cost more than my first car, and a screen big enough to make any lie look official. I took a seat near the end, not at the table but close enough to watch every face. Laurel stood at the head, polished and calm. Gideon sat to her right, scrolling his phone like he was reciting scripture. The visitor from the elevator was there too, now without the coat, now with a nameplate. Samuel Cade, External Counsel. They didn't expect me to speak. They expected me to comply. Laurel started strong. Fund 3 has outperformed expectations due to disciplined timing, ESG-linked structures, and capital efficiency. IRR uplift for Q4 is confirmed. I watched eyes around the table. Some impressed. Some calculating. One or two pretending they understood. When she clicked to the second slide, Gideon chimed in. Our recycling mechanism, executed through Greenlink 2, enabled reinvestment without new capital calls. Harkin Advisors validated performance criteria for the step down. Harkin, the ghost firm with a wireless router and a shell domain. Laurel gestured down the table. Rhea will walk through the breakdown. This was where they thought I'd read their script. I stood, plugged in my drive, and pulled up the chart. Same graph. Same numbers. Different next slide. Not the one Laurel approved. The screen showed 2 wire screenshots, timestamps, routing origin, and my forged approval tag. Then a side-by-side image of the SPV registration, Greenlink 2, and the non-existent corporate history of Harkin Advisors. No adjectives. Just facts. Someone near the center of the table whispered, "That's not in the packet." I kept my tone flat. 2 wires executed at 12:01 and 12:03 a.m. Both routed from a custodian account that was not authorized for disbursement. Both appear as recycled capital from exits that haven't closed. Gideon didn't flinch, but he stopped breathing with his mouth. Samuel Cade leaned back and crossed his arms. Watching. Not interrupting. I clicked again. A photo of the Harkin Advisors domain registration appeared, with the registrant address matching a holding company tied to Echelon's finance desk. Laurel spoke through her teeth. This wasn't cleared for presentation. I'm aware, I said. One of the board members, a man named Lawton who never asked questions unless someone else was already bleeding, cleared his throat. Whose approval was used for the wires? I looked directly at Gideon. Mine. Except I wasn't online. Audit logs show a guest network device using cloned credentials. Laurel gave me a look that said stop. Gideon gave me a look that said look away. I didn't. Additionally, I said, the external reviewer listed, Harkin Advisors, has no filings, no verifiable officers, and was registered 6 months ago to a trust linked to someone in this room. Now the silence wasn't polite. It was structural. Gideon finally spoke, voice coated in composure. What you are implying is defamatory and reckless, and you are out of line. I pulled the recorder from my bag, set it on the table, and pressed play. His voice filled the room, the same practice tone he used with LPs and reporters. We preload the recycle and certify it with Harkin. Rhea will not break ranks. She believes in process. Laurel will handle the board. You handle the wires. Then the other voice, the one from the elevator. Already handled. I stopped the playback. No one moved. Laurel stared ahead, expression unreadable but no longer polished. Samuel Cade finally spoke, calm as a surgeon. That recording, how did you obtain it? In my freezer, I said. A snort escaped someone on the right side of the table. Quickly stifled. Cade turned to Gideon. Is that your voice? Gideon swallowed. This is being taken completely out of context. Lawton looked to Cade. Next steps. Cade folded his hands. We adjourn this meeting. Immediately. An independent audit of Fund 3 and all related SPVs will commence before market close. No communications go out until legal review. Laurel exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding the ceiling up. Gideon tried one last move. We cannot derail performance optics with paranoia. Cade cut him off without raising his voice. Paranoia doesn't come with audio files. Chairs shifted. People gathered their papers. Some avoided my eyes. Some met them like they were grateful someone said it first. As the room cleared, Gideon brushed past me and leaned in, voice low enough to hide the tremor. "You think this makes you safe?" "No," I said. "It makes me documented." He walked out without another word. Only Laurel and Cade remained. Laurel didn't look at me when she spoke. "You could have brought this to me." "I did," I said. "You told me to memo it." She closed her eyes once, then opened them like nothing was new. "Go home. Do not speak to press, portfolio management, or staff. Legal will reach out by tomorrow." I nodded and left the recorder on the table. As I stepped into the hallway, a message buzzed on my phone. "Blocked number again. You aren't finished." I typed back. "Neither are you. I didn't send it. Not yet." I didn't go home. I went back to my office not because I felt safe there, but because my name was still on the door and my access badge still worked. The floor was nearly empty. People had scattered after the board meeting, either to whisper or to distance themselves from the blast radius. I locked the door and opened my laptop. My inbox was already rearranging itself, unread flags disappearing, calendar invites vanishing from next week, access to 2 shared drives quietly revoked. Laurel was moving faster than she sounded. Good. So was I. First, I backed up everything I had collected, the emails that had disappeared, the meeting invites that mysteriously hadn't included me, the wire documentation, the domain records, the call recording from my freezer. I uploaded it to 3 separate encrypted locations under names that meant nothing to anyone but me. Then I pulled up the compliance platform to check the internal audit logs. My credentials still worked, but someone had flagged my account as under review. They were preparing to lock me out. Too late. While the files synced, I texted Morgan, the only analyst who ever bothered to read the footnotes nobody asked for. "If IT calls you, you never saw me today." She wrote back instantly. "Already deleted my memory." I smirked and kept working. Next, I checked my voicemail. 2 messages, both from numbers I didn't save. The first was Laurel. "Everything is in motion. Don't speak to anyone without counsel. We will manage this internally." Translation: Stay quiet while we choose who to sacrifice. The second, Gideon. He didn't leave silence. He left a warning. "You think this ends at the board," he said. "You don't understand what you walked into." He was right. I understood more than he ever thought I could. When the file uploads hit 100%, I powered down my laptop and pulled the hard drive entirely. No chance of remote wiping. I slid it into my bag and headed for the exit. I was halfway to the elevator when Samuel Cade stepped into the hallway, coat over his arm, expression unreadable. "Leaving so soon?" he asked. "My part is done," I said. "Not quite." He didn't move closer, but his tone did. "The board will want a written statement. You'll be asked to sit for outside counsel. Not theirs, not mine. Someone federal." I assumed as much. He studied me. "You didn't do this to look noble." "No. You did it to survive." I met his gaze. "And to make sure they don't." A hint of something, not approval, not disapproval, flickered in his face. "Be careful what you assume victory looks like." Gideon and his people didn't build this over one scheme. They built a system. Then I'll dismantle the system. He raised a brow. Spoken like someone who thinks she still works here. I didn't respond. He stepped aside, making space for me to walk past. "When they realize how much you documented, they'll offer you 2 things, silence money or annihilation. Choose neither. What do you suggest?" He gave a small nod, almost to himself. Show them you're more useful alive than erased. I held his stare. Are you offering me something? He didn't answer directly. Check your email before midnight. I'll make sure it reaches you before they shut your account. Then he left down the other hallway like none of this touched him. I waited until the elevator doors closed before I moved again. Outside, the air felt colder than morning. My phone buzzed. This time, it wasn't a blocked number. It was my mother. 2 words. They called. That meant Gideon or someone else higher than him was trying to push pressure sideways: family, reputation, old favors. They were spreading the fear early. I texted back 1 word. Good. On the walk to the garage, I replayed the boardroom moment in my mind. The expressions, the silence, the shift in tone when the audio hit. Power didn't crumble with noise. It recoiled, recalculated, and came back with different teeth. As I reached my car, a black SUV turned into the level below. Not the same one from before. Different plates. No company markings. They didn't follow me out. They were already waiting. I didn't drive home. I circled the garage once, watched the SUV in the mirrors, then exited through the opposite ramp. If they wanted to follow, they'd have to choose between being seen or being late. They didn't follow. I parked 5 blocks away and walked to a co-working space I used sometimes to work on side audits. No company badge, no cameras tied to echelon, no front desk that asked questions. Inside, I sat by a window, opened a spare laptop I kept for situations just like this, and checked the only inbox they didn't know existed. 1 new message. No sender listed. No subject. The file attached was a screenshot of a calendar invite. The event title was simple. Harken meeting. Origins. No location. Just coordinates. Outside the city, near an old converted rail depot that had become a private venue for people who never wanted their names in minutes. Timestamp: tomorrow, 7:15 a.m. The attendee list was short. Gideon Hale, Laurel Jennings, 2 board members, and someone labeled only as D. Caro. The name was unfamiliar, but the domain linked to a capital firm that had invested in Echelon's first fund. Old money. Quiet money. The kind that never got mentioned in press releases. I saved the file and disconnected immediately. If there was an off-book meeting to decide how to bury what I exposed, I was not going to wait for an invitation. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time, a text. Your badge access just got revoked. You have 2 hours before staff know why. I typed back 1 word. When? The reply came instantly. Now. I closed out and left the building without checking the street first. If someone was waiting, hesitating would do more damage than walking straight through it. But nothing happened. Back at my car, I checked the rear view again. No SV. No watchers. Which meant they were busy somewhere else, scrambling, rewriting, or shredding. Good. I drove north, not home but to my brother's place. He wasn't there. International work kept him gone more often than not, but his condo was under my name too, and no one outside family knew it existed. I let myself in, locked the door, and finally let the silence settle. My phone buzzed again. A message from Morgan, the analyst. Everyone is pretending nothing happened. Gideon is in a room with 3 people and Laurel looks like she hasn't blinked in an hour. IT just pulled someone from your team into a closed call. Want me to listen in? I responded. No. Just watch who leaves early and who stays late. Her reply was immediate. Already tracking. I set the phone down and opened the spare laptop again. This time, I pulled up every off-site filing linked to Greenlink 2. Not just the wires, the notary listings, digital signing certificates, shadow email accounts, provisional bank approvals. They were all time-stamped within the same 12-hour window. Someone had prepared everything in advance and simply needed a signature to activate the trail. My signature. They would argue it was an internal misunderstanding. They would say no capital left. They would produce partial paperwork and selectively share parts that made the issue look procedural. But the full chain told a different story. I was reading through the fifth document when the room light briefly flickered. Not a power outage. Someone testing a circuit. I waited. Nothing else happened. Then my phone lit up again. This time, an email from an address I had never given anyone. From Skade.consult. Subject: Tonight. The body was one line. Check the depot before dawn. You are not the only one gathering proof. No signature. No attachment. Just direction. I stared at the message and felt something unexpected. Not fear. Not relief. Recognition. Someone else was already inside the fire with me. I didn't sleep. I waited until the sky turned the color of paper ash and left before anyone could track a signal. The rail depot was nearly invisible from the road, hidden behind a line of black pines and a fence that had no signs but plenty of cameras disguised as lighting. The lot held only 3 cars. One matched the SUV from the garage. I parked far enough not to be seen and crossed on foot. A side entrance stood slightly open. No guards. No chatter. Just low light spilling from a hallway that led to a glass-walled conference room. Through the glass, I saw them. Gideon at the head of the table, posture calm in that practiced way. Laurel beside him with a folder and no voice. A man I didn't know sat across from them and flipped through a stack of documents with slow precision. Then I saw what was on the table. My time-stamped screenshots. The mirrored ledger. The escrow trail. Every piece I pulled, laid out like someone had already built a case. A woman entered from the opposite hallway and drew the blinds halfway, not fully. On purpose. She carried a small recorder and a slim laptop. When she placed them on the table, Gideon stiffened. She spoke first. I could read her lips through the glass. Before this goes to a federal review, you will state who authorized the transfer. Gideon answered without hesitation, too smoothly. He said my name. He said I had been paid through a third party to sign off on a distressed asset pivot. He blamed urgency. He blamed silence. He framed the mess like a solo act I performed behind their backs. I waited for someone to correct him. The man with the files did. He opened one folder and slid a document forward. From my angle, I could only see the bottom a certification page with 3 signatures. None of them were mine. Laurel didn't look up. She pinched her fingers together like her pulse was trying to get out. The woman with the recorder turned slightly. I recognized her. Mara Quinn. Internal counsel brought in 2 years ago when the board needed an audit shield. She never spoke in meetings. She listened like she was memorizing exits. Now she was running this. She said something that made Gideon stop talking. Then she nodded at the unknown man. He placed another folder on the table. More signatures. More forged filings. My name nowhere. Only theirs. The glass door behind me clicked. I didn't turn fast. No sudden moves. A voice said quietly, "You walk in now or you wait until she calls you." I faced him. Director Caro. The man from the file. He wore no badge. He held no phone. Just a calm expression and a question in his eyes. "You kept your files off the network," he said. "Smart. They thought you would run first and defend later." "And you?" I asked. "I came to see who set the fire." Inside the room, Mara raised her head and looked directly at the glass. Not startled. Expecting. Caro opened the door fully. "No speeches," he said. "Just truth on record." I stepped inside. Gideon's jaw tightened. Laurel froze. The others didn't move. Mara didn't invite me to sit. She turned the recorder toward me. State your name, she said. I did. Do you have evidence contradicting the claims made about your authorization? I placed my drive on the table.
All of it.
Caro took a seat near the window. Not as a friend. As a witness. Mara pressed record. Gideon tried to interrupt. She didn't let him. I laid out every step. Badge access logs. Verifications. Timestamps.
White roots.
Paper trails older than their cover story. Silence does not mean surrender. It only means the right noise is loading. When I finished, Mara closed the folder and said one sentence that ended any illusion of control on their side. The board has already seen the originals. Gideon stopped blinking. Laurel's hands lowered from her face like gravity finally remembered her. Caro stood. You will not need to defend yourself in chambers. They will. I didn't thank anyone. I didn't apologize for surviving what they arranged. When I walked out of the depot, the sun was just getting over the trees. I had not shouted once, and they were already falling.